If you weren't here, you'll have to teach somebody else just in case you're not here.
Yeah, but by the way, I don't know how I did it. I'm not good with computers.
Chaya, good morning. And Chama, Chaya and Chama. Is Leah here? Yes. Good morning, Leah. Shoshana didn't get here yet. Malka, no. Batya is here. Rochochana, not yet. Chava, right? Chava Schreier. That's you from California. Oh, you are here. Okay. Rochochana. Tahir. And this is Gianna just came in. Okay, good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Miss Michael's son. Shirel.
Me.
Okay, Shirel. Are you from Argentina?
Yes.
Yes. Ilanit. By the way, girls, speaking of Argentina, you're a friend of mine, well, he's sort of a relative. His brother's married to my wife's sister. Okay. And his name is, he's from Brazil, where the nuts come from. Basia. Basia, not here. Okay. Ilana. Shirazi. Anyway, he's very scholarly. His name is Zions. Zions is Yiddish. It means a squirrel. From Sao Paulo. Rivka Ram is not here. Not yet. Okay. So he just came out with a booklet, a very scholarly booklet that's very important. You've probably heard that there's a different opinions. Is there an Eruv in Crown Heights?
No.
So the Rav says no.
But it's just not kosher.
And he came out with a whole booklet now explaining what are the laws behind this and why the Rebbe did not allow that there should be an Eruv in Crown Heights. So it's good that people say, okay, well, I listened to the Rav. So I respect the fact that there's no Eruv because the Rav said so. But here you have a book. It's many pages in scholarly Hebrew, but then at the beginning, there are also many pages in English that summarize the whole discussion and it explains. So it's good to know a thing. If you can understand it, it's good. It's better than doing it without understanding it. To be able to understand why, and he makes the point very forcefully. Many shluchim asked the Rebbe about making an Eruv in their community. And the Rebbe always said, no, don't do it. Because carrying on Shabbos is one of the 39 major forms of keeping Shabbos and not keeping Shabbos. In other words, if you cook on Shabbos, you're breaking the Sabbath, which is very, very serious. It carries with it a very serious penalty in the times of the Beis Hamikdash. If you do it by accident, you have to bring a sin offering to atone. And if you do it deliberately, that's it. Your life is taken away at an early age. It's very serious. And there are 39 forms of labor on the Shabbos. On the Shabbos, we're not allowed to do any labors. They're called malachot. Malacha is a labor. That's one of the reasons that I started to keep Shabbos. When I read that, the first time I ever kept Shabbos, the very, very first time, like we knew what Shabbos was in my home. My mother would light Shabbos candles and we would have challah and chicken soup and a special meal and the family would get together. But, we didn't go to shul. We didn't know anything more than that. Shabbos was a Friday night meal. It's just a set of brachos downstairs. And then somebody suggested I met a shliach. Okay, here's the story. I met a shliach for the first time, and we had a discussion. And in the course of that discussion, he said, anybody, now listen carefully, because you may use this line sometime, you may explain it to somebody. This is Basya, right? No, Malka. Malka. I'm sorry. When there's only you, I can remember it's you, but when it's you and Basya, I get you mixed up. So Liz, here, Hannah, this is what he said. He said, anybody who keeps Shabbos knows that it's categorically different from any other day of the week. Did you hear that? It's different, categorically different from any other day of the week. Rachel, good morning.
Good morning.
And I nodded. Makes sense, right? But how could you know? The only way you could know is if you did it. It's not something that you can learn about and know if it's true or not. And so I nodded, okay. But I'd never kept Shabbos. Never really kept Shabbos. Never knew. Wasn't brought up that way. But things happened that same week. I guess the Rebbe must have been thinking about me. But things happened that when by the time Thursday came along, or even Wednesday, I said, I remembered what that rabbi said to me Sunday evening. I said, maybe it would be, I said to myself, you could use a break. You've been working very hard. You could use a break. Maybe why not take it on Shabbos? I decided I would do it. So as best as I knew, I made Shabbos in my home. I lived in a house and kept Shabbos. What was I going to do? That's a whole story in itself, what I did during that day. But anyway, I had a book, a little book that an uncle of mine had given me called The Sabbath by our Reform Rabbi. It was written by our Reform Rabbi. So I had this book and I read it. It didn't make sense to me, just didn't make sense. Seemed to me like not real at all. But at the back of the book, like an appendix at the back, the rabbi inserted a Mishnah. We've learned what Mishnah is, right? That's the oral Torah that was given at Mount Sinai. And it says there that the malachas of Shabbos are 40 less 1. That's the lashon, that's the language of the Mishnah. For arboim, 40, chaser achas, less 1. That means 39. Why 40 less 1? That's a different discussion of the symbolism, the esoteric meaning. And I read them. Now, here's a challenge to you girls. Can you make a list of 40 less 1, 39 kinds of labors, creative human activities that do not overlap? Each one is distinct in itself. I couldn't do that. 39 different kinds of work. I knew when I read that this demanded respect. You couldn't just brush it off and say, well, like in the earlier part of that little booklet, it said times are different. And rest, the whole concept of rest is different now than what it was 2,000 years ago. When I read that, the 39 different kinds of work that are defined as labors on Shabbos. And if you transgress and you do any of these kinds of labors, you are desecrating the Sabbath. You're not keeping the Sabbath. You're pushing Hashem out of your house, out of your life. Oh, wow. So that's how I learned what Shabbos was, from that Mishnah. Because I saw all the things that I was doing that were listed in the list of things not to do. Like one thing was, I was heating up my house. It was freezing. It was wintertime and it was very cold. And I had to have a fire. I had to chop wood every day to have a fire. I had to cook food in order to eat. You're not allowed to do any of these things. But one thing was sure, when the day was over, I knew that he was right. I kept the Shabbos, and it really was different. It really was different. I'd never experienced anything like it before. And I said, I don't know about any of this stuff. It's what, if this is given from Mount Sinai, is this God and not God? I don't know about God, but I know that this day is different. And I couldn't wait to try it again, to try and do it better, find out more about what it was like. And I'm still working on it. Still working on it. How did we get there? How did we wander down that path? Oh yeah, because one of these major forms of labor, all the different things are creative activities that we do. If there's one thing that's doesn't seem like a creative activity, that's carrying. In your house, you can carry furniture upstairs, downstairs. It's not exactly keeping Shabbos, but it's not breaking Shabbos because you're in the same house. But if you walk outside with a key in your pocket, you're breaking Shabbos because that's carrying. Because carrying means taking something from a private place into the street. Or vice versa, taking something from the street into a private place. The classic example in the Mishnah is the poor man stands outside with his basket, and the household, the homeowner, has a challah or some food to eat, and he passes it out the window to the poor man and puts it in the poor man's basket, so he just transgressed the Shabbos. And the variations on it. What happens if the poor man takes his basket and passes it in? That's also transgression. What happens if they double up? The rich man takes it out. The poor man takes it from his hands and puts it in the basket. That's called two people who cooperate to do the transgression, and it's rabbinically forbidden. Neither of them did the biblical transgression, but it's rabbinically forbidden. Okay, and the laws become very, very complicated. But that's what carrying is all about. The idea of an eruv is to make a whole community into a private domain. We encircle the whole community with walls. You're inside a walled city. It's like being in one house, and you can carry. Are you Basia? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lyubov. Lubov? No V at the end.
Sorry?
No V at the end. Lubov. Bov, yeah. Like a Lubavitch. Hi. Okay. Glad to have you all here. So anyway, here's this booklet. It was sitting outside in 770. It's a very good booklet for you girls to get a hold of and to read it carefully, and we'll explain to you the whole thing, why the Rebbe is opposed to having an Eruv in a community. I'll give you just some ideas because when people know there's an Eruv, they carry. They take their baby out for a walk in a carriage. They carry books and they carry food and they carry from place to place. Well, carrying in a public domain, like in the street, is a transgression because it's a transgression to take from a private domain to a public domain or to take it 6 feet in a public domain from one place to the next. Carrying means picking a thing up and putting it down. There's two acts to carrying. Picking up and taking in and putting it down. If you pick it up and put it down, that's the transgression according to the Torah. And then there are rabbinical restrictions that are like partial restrictions. So the Rebbe says, number one, you always have to check. If you make an Erev, you make it by making some kind of a wall, an imitation wall. You have to check. Every Friday afternoon, you have to check to make sure that everything is not like you put up two poles and a string between the two poles. That helps. You see people do it in their front yard so they can carry in the front yard. It extends the house. They did that in Pei Tishrei in front of 770. The whole sidewalk in front of 770 out to the tent was one big eruv. So you could carry from 770 into the tent and from the tent into the 770. It didn't used to be like that. It was new this year. That's a partial eruv. But to make an eruv in a whole community is a big problem. And one of the problems is that you have to make sure that eruv is up, that it didn't fall down or didn't get knocked down. Because if the string gets knocked down, the pole comes knocked down, there's no eruv. And anybody carrying is transgressing, a major transgression of the Sabbath. That's one problem. And in the whole community, who's going to check? And from the time that they check till the Sabbath begins, who's going to check? Who's going to know if something goes wrong? And during the Sabbath, if something goes wrong, who's going to know? Who's going to check? And all these people could be transgressing the Sabbath. That's one problem. So therefore, the Rebbe was not in favor of it because it could lead to a lot of people unwittingly breaking the Sabbath. And you know, what goes around comes around. When a person, we can understand this psychologically. If I get up and I get a big bill in the mail and I'm upset about it, and I go to work and I'm upset, and I speak in an upset tone to the other people in the job, so they get upset. And then they go home and they're upset because they had a bad day at work, and they come home and they're upset with their wife or the husband. And it goes around and around. It keeps coming until it comes back to the first person who got upset. It comes back at you. So when we do something wrong, you never get away with it. When you do something good, it's like a ripple effect. You drop a stone into the pond and the waves spread out, spread out, spread out. You do something good, it spreads out. The goodness spreads in the world. You do something bad, you lose your temper. You do something selfish, you do something nasty, it spreads out and it'll come back at you, right? So we don't always see it. In human behavior, that's emotions. But in terms of spiritual things, you don't necessarily feel. You think, well, nobody's looking, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know. But really, you've disturbed the whole balance and harmony of things in the universe. You made a universal blemish. The world doesn't work so good. And maybe some person who doesn't like Jews might do something against the Jews. Where would he get the power to do something against the Jews? From our doing something against the Torah. That starts a whole chain of effect of negative things. So we don't want to put anybody, don't want to put communities into a situation where everybody is doing negative things and not even knowing it. Okay, they're not doing it deliberately, but anyway, so you have this book, look out for it, explaining the whole, it's many pages long, explains all the reasons that the Rebbe has why he disapproved and he did not allow shluchim to do this. And in many communities, the people in the community, even the Orthodox people, want to do this because they want to be able to take the baby to see grandma and grandpa. I know of one community where it's permissible. I think it's 100% permissible, and there's no poles and strings to fall down. It happened like this. the railroad company built a wall to protect houses from the noise of the trains and the dirt that is raised when the trains go by. And they built this wall around large areas of Toronto. So within that wall, it's like being in a walled city. It has the law of a walled city. You can carry. And everybody carries in Toronto. But here I see people carrying. I don't say anything to them, because when it came out that the Rav said, the Rebbe, that we all knew the Rebbe was not in favor, so we never had it. Once after Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe wasn't here visibly. So people said, well, let's have an Eruv. Well, get involved in halachic discussions. People don't know the laws. And you just see somebody carrying. The Rav of the Rav in the community came out and said, there is no Eruv in this community. Publicize it. There are signs up in 770. There is no Eruv in this community. People are warned they shouldn't carry. But then there are people who say, well, I'm not a Lubavitcher. And they carry. And there used to be the arguments in the street because people didn't know. And one person would say to the other, you're not allowed to carry. Well, I'm not a Lubavitcher. So I stay out of it. I just stay out of it. I don't want to make people angry and upset. I'm not going to accomplish anything anyway. There's a general rule, by the way, about Sabbath and about other things. You have to be very careful when you warn somebody about doing a transgression, that you shouldn't turn a person who's doing a transgression by accident, he doesn't really realize what he's doing, into a deliberate transgressor. Don't warn a person about something if he's not going to listen to you. Now this booklet is very, very, very important. I just saw it yesterday and I was reading it. It's very detailed. It's there in English as well, and much more detail in Hebrew. He brings all the sources, all the rabbinical sources behind it. But it'll explain to all of you why in Crown Heights there is no Eruv, and it's good to know. It's good to know. Okay. Tanya.
I have a question. How is in Israel?
What?
In Israel.
How is it in Israel?
The same thing.
The same thing. Sure.
Really? Because I heard that some women carry.
You're not allowed to carry from a private place to a public place, from your house into the street, or from one place in the street to another place in the street, or from one yard to another yard. You're not allowed to throw from one yard to the other yard. Oh, Shira Stahl just signed up on the Zoom. Here you go. We're marking you in, Shira. Good morning. She's getting a cup of coffee. All right, we're in chapter 5. We're learning now. Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explains so many things about the way our mind and our heart works. So we're learning here about how we deal with an idea. The situation in the beginning is we have a mind. We have our intellectual ability, our seicho, our chachma bina das, and there's a whole world of ideas. How do they unite? And what if the ideas are Torah ideas? Well, behind it is the idea that the Torah is Hashem's wisdom and Hashem's will, and how does this become connected with us? The halacha, page 93, here the line jumps out. The halacha that we're learning, the law, the Jewish law, embodies the wisdom of Hashem. The laws of the Torah are very, very wise. They're very deep. They're much deeper than you could imagine. They're very, very deep. And they embody the will of God. I'll give you a story. Here we go. If I tell you the story, we're not going to learn any more, but it's an important story. This is a Hanukkah story. There was a family, lived in Europe, could be in Germany or Austria. Very frum family. All the children in the family were Torah scholars. family was very careful about the observance of Torah and mitzvahs. And all the boys excelled in yeshiva, and the one son could not learn. He was very good in secular studies, secular knowledge, in science and mathematics, and he just couldn't do Gemara. So they heard that a great rabbi was coming to town. Name just slips, a senior moment. Okay. Anyway, this great rabbi was coming to town. They decided to go to him to ask his opinion. Why is it that their youngest son is unlike all the other boys? He cannot learn Torah. His mind goes blank. So the rabbi said, must be that he ate something not kosher. Wow. How can that have an effect? Because we're going to learn in the Tanya, because what you eat becomes your flesh and blood, and that becomes your heart and your brains. If he cannot learn Torah, it must be, says this rabbi, he was the chief rabbi of Posen and Germany. And he said, it must be he ate something kosher. They said, impossible. Our children do not eat anything outside the house. We make everything ourselves. Everything. No, they don't buy any products in the store. Just fresh food, organic food, that's all. So they're shocked. Can't be. And the father sits down with the little boy and he asks him, did you ever eat anything outside the house? No, never did. Eats all his meals only inside the house. But however, after extensive questioning, they found out that one night on Hanukkah, it was freezing cold. He was coming home from Cheder. Cheder is like a lower level yeshiva where the boys learn Aleph Beis and learn how to daven. And it was freezing cold, and there was a wedding taking place in the wedding hall, the kosher wedding hall, the Jewish wedding hall. And the gabbai, that is the guy in charge, happened to be standing in the doorway. He saw the boys, said, boys, come inside, warm up, have a little soup to warm you up. And they came in and they had a little soup. It was a kosher wedding hall. He told his father. So his father went to the kosher wedding hall. He said, do you remember such and such a night in the middle of Hanukkah? He says, yes. He says, who catered? Did you prepare that food? He said, no, we have a caterer who works for us. Who's that caterer? He wants to know the caterer. He tells him the caterer. He goes to the caterer. He says, did you cater the wedding in that night? Oh, no, says the guy. Again? I said, what do you mean again? Mm-hmm. He says, a story. This wedding was a funny wedding. The bride had been divorced, or the husband, the groom, had been divorced before the wedding. And there was a question on the divorce if it was done properly. And different rabbis were consulted. And the rabbi from Lubavitch, the Rav, that's to say the Alter Rebbe, his yahrzeit is coming up in another week, paskined that the divorce was not a kosher divorce, and he is not allowed to marry this woman. And anybody who eats at this wedding meal is eating non-kosher food. It was psak of the Alter Rebbe. And the caterer says, oh, no, not again. He says, what do you mean not again? He says, you're not the first person to come to me with some story. I didn't know. I was never informed of this psak. And I made the wedding, and after a day or two, a colleague of mine came over and says, "What's going on with you? How did you make a wedding for this couple when there was an isser on their marriage from the Rav?" He was called the Rav of Ladi, the Oslo Rav. That was the Alter Rebbe. That was what it was called before it was called the Alter Rebbe. It's called the Rav. He says, "I didn't know." Well, the paskin that anybody makes a wedding or eats at this wedding is eating non-kosher food. And here, this little boy drank the soup from that wedding. And as a result, he was not able to learn Torah. It affected his brains. It affected his sensitivity. So they went back to the big rabbi and said, "What do we do?" He said, "Whatever happened, happened. And you should continue to raise your boy with Yireh Shamayim, and Hashem should help, that your feelings should, motivate you, the whole family, to be very careful about keeping kosher. And Hashem, it's Hashem, he'll overcome the obstacles that he's facing." And we learn in the Tanya, right, that the Chachamim say in the Talmud that in the place of a Baal Tshuva can really go to even greater heights than somebody who never did a transgression. And Mitzvah Hashem, this child will also go to greater heights even than his older brothers. But from this, you see, people wondered at this, at the insight of this Rav, that he understood immediately if the child can't learn, it's because he must have eaten something that wasn't kosher. And they wondered even more at the power of the halachic decision of the Alter Rebbe that puzzled up the chasana, that all the food in the chasana became like chazer treif, because there was involved in this a violation of Torah law. So from this you see, Ilanit, I told you the story to show the depth of the wisdom and the power of a decision in the Torah. They didn't serve bacon at the wedding, but it was the same as if they did. So this is what we're learning here, page 93, the halacha that we're learning, the law of the Torah embodies the wisdom and the will of God. And if a Rav passes, what makes a thing kosher, what makes a thing not kosher is the halachic decision behind it. If the halachic decision is that it's kosher, it's kosher. If the halachic decision of a rabbi says it's not kosher, it's not kosher. Same substance. It's not the substance, it's the halachic behind it that determines. So that's what it says. And many, many times I heard the Rebbe say these words. Halacha is balabos in the world. That the Jewish Torah determines the nature of the world we live in. A tree isn't just a tree. Everything depends on the halachic status of a thing. So if it arises in the will of God, for instance, that if Reuben will claim kach and Shimon will claim kach, then the decision between them will be what the decision is. Give you another example of this. Let me just open up here. We're learning these things in Rambam these days. We're learning about decision, court. People come to court. If a person admits, Reuben says, "You owe me money." And Shimon says, "I don't owe you money." Reuben says, "You owe me 200. He says, "No, I only owe you 100. So what do we do? That's exactly what the Rebbe is saying. If Reuben says this way and Shimon says that way, then what's the decision? So let's look at an example here. Reuben comes to court and he says, You owe me 100 dates. That's not romantic dates. Those are majul dates. And Shimon says, no, I only owe you 90 dates. So we make a calculation. If 100 dates are worth so and such an amount, then Shimon, who says he has to take an oath that what he's saying is true, he has to swear. If 100 dates is not worth $100, let's say it's only worth $90, then he doesn't have to take the oath. Now, people don't like to take oaths because the first commandment of the 10 commandments is, I'm the Lord your God. You have to believe in me. I took you out of the land of Egypt and you have to believe in me. Because of that, you have to believe in me. We do. And the second commandment is, you shouldn't worship any other gods, no idols. And the third commandment is, who knows what's the third commandment? Does anybody know?
Don't swear.
Shira, you know? What's the third of the 10 commandments? Okay, somebody else. Yes? Anybody?
Don't swear and say Hashem's name in vain.
Identity, I can't hear you. What?
Like, don't swear or say Hashem's name in vain.
Don't take Hashem's name in vain. You know what that means? That means if someone gives you a banana and says, say a bracha, and you say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz, you just took Hashem's name in vain. You used Hashem's name, you made a bracha, it was the wrong bracha. So if you went to swear in court, let's say it's a serious issue like this, you have to hold on to a Sefer Torah or some other holy object. And you say Hashem's name and you swear, I swear that I only owe you 90 dates, not more, not one more. Or I swear that that you owe me 100 dates and the 100 dates are worth $100. And I swear on Hashem's holy name. People are afraid to do that. This is a swearing in Hashem's name is a very, very, very serious commandment. And a lot of people would say, you know what? Keep the money. I don't want to swear. I don't want to swear. People were afraid. People were afraid of an oath. Okay. I'll give another example. Reuben says, you owe me 5 or 6 nuts. And Shimon says, I only owe you 1 nut. So we have to work it out. If the nut is equal to a pruta is a nickel, used to be a penny. Now it's a nickel or a dime, smallest amount of money. If the pruta is worth 1 nickel, then Shimon has to swear that he only owes him 1 nut. But if the pruta is not even worth a nickel, then Shimon says, goodbye, have a nice day. He goes home. That's the law. That's how it works. That's a law called, if you admit part of a claim. If you loan somebody $10 and they say, or $50, and they forgot to pay you back. They say, you still owe me $50. Yeah, but didn't I give you $10 the other day? No, you never gave me anything. Oh, let's go to Rabbi Majeski. He'll straighten this out. So there's a law. How much do you have to owe in the first place? Like, if you only owe 50 cents, then it's not a case. Or if you admit that I owe you something, but that something is only an old rusty penny, that's also not a case. Because you didn't admit that you owe him anything. A rotten rusty penny isn't considered money. So the case is dismissed. Because you're not, might of a mitzvah means I admit that I owe you part of this money. So the law is, since you admit that you owe part, and you're saying you don't owe part, what are they arguing about? They're arguing about the part that you admit, that you don't admit that you owe. He's saying you still owe me another 50. And I'm saying I don't owe you anything. I gave you 50. That's all I had to give you. No, I loaned you 10. I loaned you 100. You admit that you gave me 50. But what about the other 50? He says, I don't know you. I don't know. So they're arguing about the extra 50. That's called, if you admit part of a claim, then you have to swear an oath on the part that you don't admit. And if you swear an oath, then the oath means that you really mean it. You really believe that that's the truth. So maybe it is. Okay, so if this is how it came up in Hashem's mind before he created the world, that this would be the case, then this would be the verdict. And if we learn this law, then we are learning in our brains the will and wisdom of God. You got it? So that's why it's a good idea to pick up that book about why there's no error in Crown Heights. Find out what the law really is. Good book, just came out. Little pamphlet. About 10 pages at the beginning, explaining it all in English.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you all for coming. We'll see you tomorrow. No more, from now on, Bli Neder, no more stories. We're just going to stick with the Tanya. But I hope that the stories explain the Tanya. That's why we tell them.
For Monday.
What?
It's good for a Monday.
It's good for a Monday?
Yes. It's perfect. It's perfect.
It's good for Tuesday, too. We have to cover more ground.